Basically, I'm asking you to solve a number of problems that people have, but I think we often hear that one of the major fears people have is public speaking.
Yeah.
But I think it's highly contextual, right? Like when we think public speaking, we think like being forced out on a stage to talk about a topic we don't know or something. But what do you think that fear of public speaking is really about?
Well, those of us who study this believe it actually has an evolutionary basis. That when our species was hanging around in groups of about 150 people, your relative status meant everything. And I'm not talking about who has the fancy car or who gets the most likes on social media. It's who got access to resources, food, shelter, reproduction. And if you did something that put your status at risk, that could be really bad news for you. So those of us who study this believe it's ingrained in who we are to be very sensitive to anything that puts our status at risk. And that can be being up in front of a big crowd or talking to my boss about an important issue. All of those put us at risk.
Very experienced and skilled communicator.
Right.
But he's also an expert in that topic. And this is the thing that I always would remind my students and postdocs who had some understandable stage fright, which is there's no way that you aren't among at least the top 3 people in the room in terms of the knowledge of what you're talking about.
Yes.
Right? Like probably have the most knowledge, but maybe someone else is an expert there, which can be a little scary, but at least you're sort of their peer. So to remind oneself that in most situations where we're public speaking, you're among the top experts in that. You spent the most time with the material, at least compared to the audience.
Well, and I would add to that often when we're in those situations, the audience actually wants to learn from us. They're there because they want to take value from us. They're not there to critique and judge and evaluate, although that can happen. People don't like watching people fail and flail. We want to get some value. And if you remind yourself that I have value to bring and the audience wants that value, that can reduce some of the temperature of that. He's clearly several standard deviations away from most of us, but we all carry around this judgment in our head. And what it does is it locks us internally and not allows us to be external. So you're absolutely right. And when I'm focused on judging what I'm saying, I'm using precious cognitive bandwidth that I could be spending on making sure you clearly understand my message. This is why memorizing what you're trying to say works against you, because that precious cognitive bandwidth, trying to get it right, gets in the way of actually doing it. So we need to train ourselves to understand that the magic of communication happens in the moment and not what's happening in your head before.
Yeah. And it's always a lot of fun, but I do it as a way to break up the cadence. Sometimes I think the difficulty in public speaking comes from the fact that as we go out there, we've done some preparation.
Right.
Maybe we've memorized it. I typically don't, but we have some sense of what we're going to say, beginning, middle, end, et cetera.
Right.
What's on the slides, but that the cadence can become so regular that we lose people. What to do if one does forget what they're trying to say on stage, or just choke?
Yeah.
You know, I recommend if people are nervous that they actually have some outlet for that movement, as I talked about before. Pacing or even bouncing one's knee behind the podium, very effective at dispelling energy and getting one to relax. I just think it's been a useful tool for me, and I think for others that have suggested too as well.
Like with my students, I have to say it depends. It depends on the circumstance that you're in. I do believe that audiences are more forgiving. What I advise the people I teach and coach to do in those moments is, instead of saying, oh, I forgot what I want to say, why not say, I get sometimes so passionate about what I say, I get a little ahead of myself, which is likely true, and use that as a reason to reset. Let me share with you what I advise people to do to avoid blanking out, and then what to do if you do blank out. First and foremost, avoid memorizing. Memorizing invites blanking out, so let's not memorize. Let's have a clear structure, a roadmap, but we don't know every word that we're going to say. I ask everybody to think about, what is the likelihood in this upcoming communication, whatever it is, one-on-one, big presentation, that you'll blank out? Most people say maybe 20%. Well, that means 80% of the time you're not going to blank out. I'm not a betting person. I'd take those odds. So realizing that it's not as likely to happen, that's step one.